County Budget Committee work session this Tuesday, May 13th at 1:57. I don't have my gavel today, but we'll pretend that I did it. Welcome to the group. I think our only item of committee business is approval of the May 6th meeting minutes that we all received via email last night. Did everyone have a chance to review those? Okay. Do I have any motions for approval of those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. The May 6th meeting minutes are approved. Is there any other committee business? Okay, great. Well, then we will go ahead and turn it over to Director Gray and her team from Health and Human Services for their presentation today. Thank you.
And I'll turn it right over to Assistant Director.
Well, thank you. And we will have the team here introduce themselves as their sections come up. But I just wanted to thank the citizen members of the Budget Committee for your participation in this important process in the state of Oregon. So, and the board, of course, as well. So with that, a department overview of Health and Human Services. So our mission is to promote and protect the health and well-being of all individuals, families, and communities in Lane County. And right here is just a quick org chart, multiple divisions within Health and Human Services. But today we will hear from Public Health, the Community Health Centers, and Human Services, with behavioral health presentation coming on Thursday. So looking at our proposed budget at a global level for resources, we're proposing about rounding up a $218 million budget. It's about a little over 9% less, or a decrease from the current budget this year. And that's due to basically a decline in federal resources, which we are heavily dependent upon, and a small decline in state resources. We're seeing, I guess for the last couple of years, the ARPA money, the COVID money is pretty much flowed entirely through the system now. There are some small remnants left with different acronyms associated with them, but we are coming down to the bottom of the barrel of that funding, so we're seeing it in our budget. The largest decline we had in federal resources was tied to funding from the Health and Human Services Department. And with local revenues, some of it, we're seeing a change in our budget in local revenue, but it's due to an accounting sort of adjustment with some revenue from the city of Eugene. We received all of it in 1 year, so the budget shows that, and then next year we're going back to annual payments. And the next one is, as we have opened up the South Lane Clinic in Cottage Grove, fundraising has slowed. So there won't be that local revenue associated with that clinic. The general fund is a little over $5 million in the proposed budget, about less than 2.5% of our operating budget. Small decline in general fund resources compared to the current budget. And unfortunately, as I've stated, our revenue is not keeping up with the cost of doing business in 2025, 2026. On expenditures, the total expenditure budget, roughly $225 million, which is a little less than a 5.5% decrease from the current budget. However, we are seeing around a $5 million or a 4.3% increase in personnel costs, offset with a $17.5 million reduction in materials and services, which is a 14.6% decrease. So we're seeing some shifts here where the overall budget decreasing, personnel costs going up, and personnel costs going up when you take into account a significant reduction in FTE through the supplemental 3 process of this budget year and within the proposed budget. Now, H&H Health and Human Services, normally kind of a rule of thumb is personnel costs could be, in a public entity, could be about 80% of your budget. That is not true for Health and Human Services because we manage a large subcontracted system where money comes, pass-through money comes in from the federal or state government, and we send that out to benefit the community.
Just 1 second, Zach. It helps if I share the presentation to the people that are on the Teams thing. Jason's like, we can't see the slideshow. Okay.
There we go. So referenced discretionary general fund, there's a few areas in Health and Human Services that receive general fund discretionary resources. And I will defer to Jocelyn and Kate to talk about those areas when we get to public health and human services. But multiple different areas, there was some reductions that came throughout our internal processes and working with the county administrator. We also have a one-time transfer into the Family and Child Health Program for a supervisor, as well as the dawn-to-dawn service had received in Human Services Division, had received discretionary general fund support, but that's been picked up by state funding. So we will switch that off, and we will discuss the commitment investigation and behavioral health on Thursday. And something to note here is what's not on here is next year, or the proposed budget for 25-26, will be the 3rd straight year that we have not included the public health communicable disease program on here. Resource development program within H&HS administration, and partial funding for the Women, Infants, and Children Nutrition Program. That normally is around, I think that would cost about $850,900, and we're using internal resources to reduce the request from the general fund. Clicking now.
Jennifer,
Not working?
next. Oops. No, both mine.
All right, public health, Jocelyn.
Okay. I'll try to not block your view of the screen there. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jocelyn Warren, the Public Health Division Manager. Public health prevents disease and injury and promotes optimal health through regulation, programs, and policy. The division is comprised of 2 units, health protection and healthy communities. Health protection includes communicable disease and immunization programs, environmental health, emergency preparedness, the Public Health Reserve Corps, and mobile public health. Healthy communities includes the prevention and community partnerships programs, family and child health programs, WIC nutrition services and lactation support, and vital records. Most of what determines people's health happens outside the clinic, in homes, families, neighborhoods, and workplaces. The work of public health is to support healthy environments and the conditions in which people can be healthy. Our proposed budget for the fiscal year 25-26 is approximately $24.85 million, with staffing at 101 FTE. Next slide, please. In this proposed budget, public health continues to make reductions, eliminating another 10.5 FTE from last year's proposed budget levels. Reductions include the elimination of the mobile public health program by the end of the calendar year. A small team is now supporting a pilot project to reduce unnecessary ER use and will continue to do that 2 days a week until the state grant funding is exhausted. We've also eliminated a stores clerk position, the role of the assistant medical director and HIV/STI supervisor in communicable disease, 1 community health nurse position, and an office assistant. This year is also the year for updating the community health assessment and the community health improvement plan, which are done in collaboration with the Live Healthy Lane Coalition, which also includes Trillium Community Health Plan, Pacific Source Health Plans, the Pacific Source Community Health Council, the CCO Community Advisory Council, and Kaiser Permanente. This cycle of planning is actually the fourth we've done in Lane County since 2013, when we first used a framework called Mobilizing for Action Through Planning, Partnerships, and Policy, or MAP, which is used throughout the country for this work. Now we are using MAP 2.0, which puts a greater emphasis on community engagement and shared decision-making. Next slide. So our key initiatives include, from the top, reorganizing the HIV/STI services to prioritize groups that are most impacted in our community by HIV and STIs, and also reducing the clinical services that we provide and working with clinical partners to assure capacity in the community for clinical services. At the same time, we continue the work of surveillance of a range of communicable diseases and conditions. Lately, that has included Shigella and Salmonella outbreaks. We are also monitoring measles outbreaks across the country. I've already mentioned the Live Healthy Lane Coalition and the new Community Health Assessment and Community Health Improvement Planning. Data are currently being shared in small groups throughout the county in order to contextualize the data, to consider the conditions that give rise to differences in health outcomes, and allow people to consider also what issues may be top priorities for the Community Health Improvement Plan. The development of that will begin in a month or so and continue through the rest of this calendar year. And we will be involving the Board of Health in that work as well. Public health modernization continues to be the framework for transforming local and state public health that began with the first state modernization legislation in 2015, which is 10 years ago now, with House Bill 3100. This year, we'll be submitting an implementation plan to the legislature that was required in the 2015 legislation. The prenatal and early childhood years continue to be area in which we concentrate a lot of our resources and effort because we know that this is a critical time period when we can have the greatest impact on lifetime trajectories. We have launched Family Connects, which is the Universal Home Visiting Program, and are also applying to expand Nurse Family Partnership, our largest and most impactful home visiting program. If approved, we would be discontinuing 2 other home visiting programs. Next slide, please. Challenges and opportunities. So as we continue to try to stabilize services in public health, we continue to advocate for additional state resources for modernization and supporting public health and health system transformation, especially with the long legislative session in session now. The Environmental Health Program will be proposing to update its fees again to get on a regular schedule so we don't see large increases in over several years. The supervisor continues to engage operators and license holders in that process. And the Community Health Improvement Plan is on the horizon. Challenges. I mentioned ending mobile public health. That honestly is a hard loss. The program gave us the ability to support services anywhere in Lane County. We do have new offices for WIC in Cottage Grove at the new Community Health Center, which is fantastic. And we continue to seek space in other places, including Florence. But outreach in the community and supporting other county services like parole and probation will definitely be scaled back. The EPA grant, also a challenge. In this proposed budget, it funds 4 positions in environmental justice, emergency preparedness, and the Public Health Reserve Corps. So we have been doing contingency planning in the event that funding is not made available. At the same time, we are losing capacity for responding to emergencies. Our emergency preparedness needs are growing with wildfire and smoke emergencies, syphilis rates that continue at about the same as last year, which means congenital syphilis is also a real risk, and measles outbreaks continuing to grow in the US, Canada, and Mexico. Finally, Lane County Public Health, like health departments across the country, also receives federal funding from the CDC that goes to states for allocation across a range of programs that might now also be at risk for reductions. A lot of these are our prevention programs, alcohol and drug prevention, suicide prevention, then also in the communicable disease program around immunizations and tuberculosis. In March, we lost funding on one grant that had supported vaccination outreach and was the last of the COVID funding, as Zach mentioned. These other programs have at least some federal funding as well and may also be at risk, although there's really no way to know that at this point. So we just wait and see. Are there any questions?
I just will add, memos in their packet.
I think we have them, did we put them in the packet or are we having them now? Okay, yeah, we'll have them behind that.
Okay, well, I'll just heads up, for public health, there is a ad request for the committee's consideration. The Oregon Department of Transportation is providing money for a transportation survey in rural communities. And that grant or notice of that award came in after we had put in our department request budget.
I think we can hear Metro. Is that Metro?
You said Metro, I thought you meant trains.
I saw them trying to log in.
Jason's got it. Show's coming in across the back.
Maybe start over.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I got distracted. Reading. So we have two memos. One we'll talk about with Human Service Division after Kate's section, but one of them is with Public Health. It is an award notice of award that we received for a transportation study in rural Lane County that came in after we had submitted our department request budget. So it's for the committee's consideration to include in your deliberations.
Do you want questions about it now? Or?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Sure.
I was, so it looks like the only cost to us is the $29,975 match.
Right,
Where, do we know where that's coming from yet?
that's a good question. I'm sorry.
Modernization.
Is it modernization? Okay, yes, it's modernization.
Great.
We do have a 200,000 in modernization funding that was unallocated that we can use for that.
And, okay. And is the $29,975 for each of the 2 years or total? So it's a 2-year.
It's a 2-year grant, I think
Project.
that's total, but I can get back to you with that
Even better
information to
leverage.
confirm. Yeah, it's a planning grant, it's one of those, it's
Yeah,
real
yeah.
typical in ODOT, I think, where, then we would be applying to 2
Make
years
you
from
eligible
now
to get the
for
money to do that.
intervention.
Great, thank you.
I have a question on the second memo, which is a Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funding.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's a loss of 4 or 6 positions?
Yes, and that's actually Kate Budd, and I would be happy to switch seats with her.
I think we
Is
can come
Kate,
back.
do you want to say, reserve that for her presentation?
Yeah, that'd be great, thank you. That's concerning.
Hi, everybody. I'm Suzanne Rilla. I'm the Division Manager for the Community Health Centers. So the Community Health Centers are the federally qualified health center primary care offices primarily for Lane County. Our mission is to improve health and wellness of our community through access to affordable, holistic health care. So we are the county physician offices at the Community Health Centers, and we offer primary care, family practice, pediatrics, dental services for prevention, dental outreach. We have a community health program. We help patients with enrollment for OHP, which is Medicaid coverage. We have pharmacy support teams and a little bit of limited specialty care in the area of allergy and developmental pediatrics. Our budget for the proposed year is proposed at just shy of $53 million. I will note on here that the Community Health Centers does not and has not taken any money from the general fund. We are self-sustaining with the revenues that we receive from the federal government, from the state, and from our insurance payers. So our changes for next year, we've been in a very large period of change over the last 2 years with 2 clinics opening in the last fiscal year, this past fiscal year, and we converted our electronic health record to Epic over the last year. So our main goal for the next year is calm and stable and just get everything level set to our new levels. We grew quite a bit. We added several physicians and nurse practitioners, physician associates, added several staff in opening the 2 new clinics and increasing the capacity at our existing clinics. We have 8 locations throughout. For next year, we primarily decreased our budgets to get into a fairly balanced state related to vacancy reduction. So where you'll see a number of FTE reductions, Those were all in the name of vacancy. They did not have humans in those chairs, which was a good way. We had over allocated what we needed for vacancies as we were opening the clinic to provide us some flexibility in our recruitment. Didn't know if we would get a physician or a nurse practitioner, for instance. So as we got those seats filled, then we didn't need to have all the other vacancies. And so did quite a number of eliminations there. We've reduced a few of our optional service lines proposed for the next year. Some of those areas that weren't really focusing primarily on primary care. And our locums providers. Locums providers are folks that come in for a short period of time, 3 to 6 months, and helped us through that stabilization as we were recruiting permanent providers. So we've reduced that budget to practically nothing for next year. Our mobile services, as Jocelyn mentioned, we're part of that grant currently, providing outreach at 2 of our shelters in town, and that will come to an end at the end of this year as the funding expires. Our changes for next year are a big giant question mark as we wait to see what the federal impacts are from our governing agencies, which are HRSA and CMS, so the Health Resources Service Administration, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So we're waiting, and then of course Federal Health and Human Services, waiting to see what that does. Next slide. So again, sort of just all of the different areas that we're waiting on. We will review if there's an opportunity to do any other mobile outreach services related to primary care. We are looking to speak with our CCOs, those are our community care organizations or our payers, about increasing the rate that they currently pay us, so that work is underway. MyChart is an initiative through the electronic health record. That's a big push for us this next year, as it can really help with efficiencies and patient care. And access, of course, to care is always a focus of ours. We're looking into what we might be able to do for an expansion for dental services. We have started the integrated oral health program at the South Lane Clinic, and we're hopeful that we can continue to look for resources and grants to expand to full-scale dental at some point in the near future. Next slide. That's the same slide, we can go to the next slide. Next slide. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? All right, thank you.
Actually,
Commissioner
just,
Lovell?
yeah, thank you. So, I'm sorry, I had to kind of get my head in order there. When you mentioned expanding the dental clinics and all that, is that also fee structured as well?
Yes.
Okay, so are those fees subject to increases as well as the other ones we're talking about? Okay, great, thanks.
Commissioner Farr?
I'll ask my question separately later, so thanks.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Kate Budd. I'm the Human Services Division Manager. And the mission of our division is to improve the quality of life for all those in our community, particularly those who are underserved, those who are in poverty, those who are without homes, through local programs and services. And we do that in a variety of different ways. Firstly, we are the community action agency for Lane County, which means we focus on reducing the number of people who are in poverty. We're also the continuum of care, which means we are a planning and coordinating body around the homeless crisis response system and assisting those who are unhoused, as well as those who might be at risk of losing their homes. The first general fund request that we have made is related to this focus and is in the amount of $2.8 million. It primarily is utilized as the dollars that we bring to the table for the Human Services Commission. And this commission is a body that brings together Lane County commissioners, Springfield and City of Eugene city council members, and one member of the City of Eugene budget committee. And together, each of those different jurisdictions bring dollars to the table. And those dollars are allocated to different programs within the scope of reducing poverty and addressing homelessness in the community. At this point, we understand and very much appreciate that the City of Eugene has allocated approximately $1.1 million to this pot for the Human Services Commission. City of Springfield has allocated approximately $150,000. And so really thrilled that all the jurisdictions are coming to the table with dollars, hopefully. Within that $2.8 million, we also utilize it as match funds. We have many different funding sources, including federal dollars that require 25% match, another that requires 100% match. And so we utilize these dollars to leverage other funds to bring into the community, and then also provide support to a number of different programs where the funds we receive here in the division don't actually cover all the costs that exist, and so it very much helps support gaps that we have realized by bringing those dollars into the community. The next focus of the Human Services Division is homelessness response. It includes preventing houselessness through rent assistance and supportive services, street outreach, working with those who are very much living on our streets and in tents and in cars, emergency shelter and rehousing assistance. We have a general fund ask related to this focus as well, and it is the homelessness transformation general fund ask. And this was related to the TAC report that was adopted about 4 years ago now. And it was a consultants that came into the community and looked at holistically our overall homeless crisis response system. And what they identified is that there was a need to very much coordinate resources and to make sure that when, especially folks who have higher needs, kind of rise to the knowledge of different systems of care, that there are staff available to help connect them to the different resources that exist, especially for people who have high needs. And so I often refer to these dollars as like the air traffic control of our system, and it helps support staff to be able to do that very important work. We also focus on utility bill payment assistance and weatherization supports, as well as workforce employment and training services, and then also veteran benefit assistance and advocacy. Our last general fund ask was related to the Veterans Benefit Assistance, and that is very much bringing dollars to the table as a part of the maintenance of effort requirements that the state has in order for communities to be able to draw down the Office of, or the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs dollars for veteran service officers. And so without providing the maintenance of effort funds locally, we wouldn't be able to draw down the same amount of money and would see a reduction, based on the loss of dollars at the local level. And so what's amazing about the Veterans Service Office is that they bring in millions of dollars into our community by helping connect veterans to the benefits that they're eligible to receive, both in one-time payments as well as ongoing payments. And so each of these general fund asks are incredibly important to our division and very much help meet immediate needs as well as ongoing needs that we have in the community. So just regarding FTE, we have a total of 62 staff proposed for the next fiscal year. Resources a little below 50 million and expenses a little above 50 million. So when we think about changes to human services, one significant one is that we had applied through Lane Workforce Partnership for WIOA, or Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funds. This was through a customary request for proposal, and unfortunately our application was not the highest among the applications, and so we will not be receiving those WIOA funds in the next fiscal year. And so that is the budget memo in front of you, is just recognizing the loss of those funds and the change that then makes to our budget. As Suzanne and Jocelyn mentioned, we have many unknowns on the federal level. The president's budget does indeed eliminate some of the funding sources that flows through our division, as well as make notable changes to funding that we receive. Some combining of funding sources, as well as changes to the programmatic areas that we have been working within for years. And so we're of course paying very close attention, as I'm sure all of you are. We also have many unknowns on the state level, and fortunately we also anticipate that those dollars will likely come through as the legislation continues to move forward, but likely will not know until June. We also are very much focusing our staff in areas where there are dollars available to support their work. And when there are, unfunded needs, trying to find dollars in order to help support those. We made continued reductions to our travel and training costs. And we are going to realize fewer programs that are subcontracted to community agencies, simply because we have an overall reduction of funding that we can subcontract to our partner agencies. And then lastly, we are stepping into providing the health-related social needs housing benefit, which is a part of the Medicaid 1115 waiver. And we started actually this week providing services to households in our community. It's been just a lot of laying groundwork and negotiating of contracts to get here today. But we're really excited to be able to provide this program and to be able to continue to scale it to meet the need. Right now, the HRSN housing benefit has a pretty significant backlog of households that are in need of rent assistance, and so we'll continue to seek different ways we can scale up to help meet that need overall. A few other notable key initiatives just include our Veteran Services Office expanding the connections they have to reaching veterans in our community. This includes working with the NAACP, with veteran serving agencies in both West and East Lane counties, as well as working with a number of statewide agencies as well to do outreach within the very rural areas. We've also been able to bring in additional dollars to support the need to work more closely with survivor-focused agencies, recognizing that folks who are experiencing houselessness are often surviving domestic violence or sexual assault or other challenges that are common when someone's living on the street. And so we've been working to integrate our coordinated entry efforts with the survivor-focused agencies, and we'll continue to do that in the next fiscal year. And then lastly, we were very fortunate to receive dollars from Lane Community Health Council to start a senior housing pilot with LCOG to be able to help identify seniors who are unhoused and get them connected with housing resources that they might be eligible, such as adult foster care, assisted living, simply shared housing, et cetera. And so we've already seen great progress with this programming, and we'll continue to see it ramp up in the next fiscal year. So regarding challenges and opportunities, a few of the points that I haven't touched on yet regarding challenges is just recognizing that unfortunately, especially with human services, it is rare that there is funding available that covers all the costs. And so inevitably, because of the value of providing the services in the community, there are often gaps in funding. And I mentioned the Human Services Commission dollars are invaluable in helping to address those gaps. We also are hearing very loud and clear from our partner agencies, the nonprofits and grassroots agencies in our community, that they are struggling to meet their costs. And this includes challenges related to inflation, challenges related to fundraising, especially as many people are tightening their belts. And then just challenges related to the increased cost of salaries for their staff. And so we're getting asked for additional dollars from agencies that unfortunately we rarely have. We do have some opportunities ahead of us for the next fiscal year. It includes the state and particularly the governor's office and state representatives working with the homeless service providers to create a shelter framework for ongoing emergency shelter funding across the state. And this is very exciting because we have not had ongoing emergency shelter funding yet, especially in this big of a way. And so it allows us to rely on being able to keep our shelter beds open biennium after biennium. And so we do expect and hope that legislation will move forward during this legislative session. We also have instituted an HMIS, a Homeless Management Information System service fee. And so if there is a program that does not receive dollars from the county, but may be receiving dollars from a federal entity or state entity, that we institute a fee for them to utilize that homeless management information system to be able to support our efforts as the administrator of the system. And while it's not an enormous increase in revenue, we do see that it is helping to whittle down the number of users that we have within the system, which is also a cost-saving measure. So we appreciate agencies being open to those discussions. And then lastly, the Poverty and Homelessness Board, which is the board that oversees the continuum of care and the community action work that we do. They have been embarking in creating a strategic plan for the last year. And this is exciting because we haven't had one since COVID, and so have really been working on a year-to-year work plan. And so this is very much a conglomeration of the many concerns and needs that we've heard across the county, and we are at the third draft at this point in that plan and hope to be able to adopt it soon to move forward in the next fiscal year. Any questions?
Okay, not a question, just first a word of accolade. Your department oversees at least 3 multi-jurisdictional commissions. The Human Services Commission you mentioned, the Poverty and Homelessness Board you mentioned, and the multi-agency collaborative, all of which bring different groups of people from different jurisdictions to our table here at Lane County. And only one of them is intergovernmental, and that is Human Services Commission, meaning it's funded by all 3. The others are funded by Lane County. And but we do ask for collaboration, and we receive excellent collaboration. Back in 1995, I sat right where Zach's sitting, right there, wondering what was through that door right there. Steve Manella talked about today's needs and the combination and the collaboration between Eugene, Springfield, and Lane County on the Human Services Commission, and the ratio of funding that each government provided to that's changed through the years significantly. I could say it, but out loud, the city of Eugene's ratio has dipped tremendously through the years, and Lane County is funding a much larger portion of that.
Well, and I will offer that the contribution by the city of Eugene and Springfield has remained stagnant for at least the last 4 to 5 years, whereas we have seen that the contribution by Lane County has continued to it increased during COVID, with the additional dollars, and it has decreased. And it is, just incredibly important in helping to meet the needs that exist within the community, which we know continues to rise.
And all that, Chair, to make at this point, that we rely on collaboration between governments to make our human services efforts work. And we're the only government that has a human services division. And we we provide the human services to the city of Eugene and to the city of Springfield and to the smaller cities and to the rural areas. This collaboration is all ever more important, never more than it is today, particularly as federal funding is diminishing, making certain that we're all pulling in the right direction. And I'm here to tell you that this person is a breath of oxygen in every room that she walks into regarding collaboration, regarding bringing people together. You should have seen her last Friday. In fact, I got a video of her last Friday speaking to a very large group of people in our HMIS system that just making certain that the collaboration just comes from every corner it possibly can. But today, even more than ever, the collaboration between us and the cities is really essential, and it's something that we all need to put attention into.
Thank you, Commissioner Farr. Commissioner Trieger?
Thank you, everybody who presented. Thank you, Kate. I have some, a little more follow-up. I want to dig into the WIOA funding a little bit. First, I want to ask a general question. This came after the fact, so it's not included in the 18 positions that the administrator talked about at our kickoff, right? We have 80 positions, many vacant, but it's only 18 actual. Yeah, the 5 are not part of that. So, so I guess just because this has just been going on for so long that we've been getting this funding, as you say in the memo, decades, these are federal or state? Okay, federal dollars, the WIOA, the act was a federal act. And you said the RFP process is customary, so it's not uncommon to send it out to RFP. So, so they couldn't just have opted to renew another 5 years without a process. So a series of questions, and if you don't know, because it wasn't in your shop, but who chose, who reviewed the applications, what was the criteria or scoring mechanism used, and who did receive the award?
So I can share that an agency called Grant Associates received the award. And regarding those details, I'm not privy to that information at this point.
Who's Grant Associates?
It's
Never heard
an
of them.
entity that works nationally to provide workforce services.
For profit?
I believe so.
Workforce development redefined is what they say.
Redefined.
Redefined. Yeah. On our dime. No, never mind.
Can I follow up on that?
Commissioner Buck?
So the people that were in these positions aren't just gonna be funded, the same people, but funded by a different entity. We've lost those employees in our region.
So that, yes, we had to end those positions. We did have and continue to have movement just related to the union agreement, but those 5 positions have ended.
As of June 30th of this year, so 2020, June 30th, 2025.
And we don't know why we didn't get it, was it?
You know, we were given feedback from the process, and you know, I'd be happy to forward that feedback. I think essentially, you know, it just sounds like Grant Associates brought a pretty amazing proposal to the table.
It was a Lane Workforce Partnership contract, correct?
Correct.
So Lane Workforce Partnership Board would have made the review and
Any other questions from the committee?
Just as grants are really competitive. I mean, that's all. That's all.
If there's, sorry, I mean, again, you may not know, and I may just have to begin. So we, in theory, these are dollars that are supposed to support Lane County displaced workers and other kind of employment supports, but we have no guarantee of where the people doing that work live, how well they know the community, where they are located, anything about how they're gonna deliver these services. They just apparently put a really great presentation together, but that they're a national for-profit company.
Yeah, I think those are great questions, and I would hope that the Lane Workforce Partnership is thinking through those, but I don't know the details.
They don't have a local footprint at all.
They
So
don't have a local
will-
footprint?
No, they don't have any services in the state of Oregon, California, or Washington, from my understanding, so this would be new territory for them.
That's distressing as well.
The board still has a seat on the executive committee of,
We do.
okay, are you, Commissioner? Okay, great.
Can you share more?
Well, obviously I had to recuse from the vote because it's Lane County and I represent Lane County, but they, on the scoring continuum, they were a solid 2 points ahead on the scale. They do have a following reputation in the western states that they serve in, and Lane Workforce's partnerships status and their mission statement is to create jobs. And I think that the Grant Associates put together a very compelling proposal to sway the other board members who voted on this, that these folks have a reputation for creating jobs in a very positive way that aligns with their values. And I think it was, I hear what you're saying. I hear that it's a hard pill to swallow, but at some point too, everyone tries innovation at some point to do something different. This has been a contract that's been ongoing for quite some time, and perhaps the board thought it was time to change the direction to find a new outcome. That's all I can really tell you, because like I said, I was recused from the vote.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Each of you for your presentations. This was very helpful and informative.
No.
It's right next to me.
Very good at that. I'm gonna go through
Got you out in time, Eve. You have a few minutes to
How many kids do you have? 3 daughters. You want to see one of them, watch Jeopardy on TV.
Pass that on.
My oldest daughter. Yeah, that's good. Sarah. No, this is, I don't know how she did it.
She didn't tell me anything.
She was already taken. She didn't tell us what happened. I know that she didn't have to come back the next day. But depending on when you come in, you could win 2 or 3 games. They filmed 5 of them. You could film 2 or 3. Yeah. Sarah's gonna be on Jeopardy.
I heard you say that. I know Sarah rather well.
Yes, you do.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
there.
Well done.
She's a special ed teacher. Getting her PhD. Athens.
The rest of my team is walking up the stairs. Thank you.
Seven
In
minutes.
the deliberations, but not the vote, or you recused from the item altogether?
No, I was able to listen to what the deliberations were, and like I was just telling Bruce, we had to kind of redirect the conversation, because sometimes conversation gets negative without having any facts to it.
We are still
Being recorded.
Yeah, just FYI, as
Yeah, June 5th for Sarah on Jeopardy.
I adjourned to step out for a few minutes.
All right, well, the next item on our agenda is the assessment and taxation team. And then with that, I will turn it over to our assessor for the presentation. Welcome.
thank you, Chair. Your flies. So, I'm Mary Brooksett Schaefer. I'm the Assessor Tax Collector of Assessment and Taxation, and I'll be presenting the proposed 25-26 budget. Go ahead and interrupt me. I'm gonna kind of go through, we have a pretty seasoned board here, so I'm gonna go through these slides to save time for legislative updates and questions at the end. So if you need me to stop or repeat myself, just interrupt me. Thank you. Great. So the purpose of assessment and taxation is to appraise property, calculate, collect, and distribute taxes. And we have 3 divisions. We have administration, property tax management, and appraisal. And we have a proposed total of 46.8 FTE. Our estimated resources are 1.67 million, and our estimated expenses, I'll say expenses, proposed is 8.9 million. we work on behalf of 85 taxing districts, and those include cities, schools, fire and public safety, all those districts listed. And this is a dollar bill. I'm sure you all have seen this. The 12 cents to the county on every dollar collected fluctuates between 11 and 12 cents per year. So, and that's based on our permanent rate. So these are our resources for this next year. It's we're mainly funded through general fund. The next tier of funding comes from the County Assessment Function Funding Assistance Grant, and that's the Department of Revenue. We estimate that revenue to be about $1 million for 25-26. Of course, that is dependent on the market. Recording fees make up a big part of that pool of money. So if the market stays steady, the $1 million is kind of where we're looking. If there's a dip in the market, that could change. So, and then tax foreclosure, late filing penalties make up a big portion of our revenue. And
Question from Commissioner Buck.
please,
I just want a clarification. When you say market, do you mean real estate market?
yes, sorry,
Thank
yes, real estate market. Yeah, because those recording fees are collected on every recorded document, and those fees go into a pool of money. That pool of money is what we call the CAFA fund, and there's delinquent interest that also feeds that fund as well. So, and I'll talk about CAFA a little bit more. So, initially, the CAFA grant was created to fund 30 to 40% of A&T costs. As you all have probably heard me say, those funds were not indexed to keep up with inflation. Expenses have grown higher than revenue. And recording fees, and then also a portion of delinquent interest makes up that pool of money now. There used to be a state general fund contribution, and that was eliminated in 2009. So, and then so that 1 million, we estimate it to be about 11.22% of expenditures from the CAFA grant. And then penalties and fees, we're looking at about $670,000 total for those line items. Personnel growth, this is not different than other departments. We had contract negotiations, COLAs, non-rep class study, and a reorganization that made our baseline higher than sort of expected. And then with our reductions, and I'll talk about the number, the actual dollar amount of our reductions slated for 25-26, we will eliminate one FTE, and that's an assessment and taxation specialist. That was a vacant position, so we didn't actually, we knew that reductions were coming, we just didn't know what that would look like. So we kept some positions vacant as to not, hire someone and then have to let them go. Hire and train and like that. So what that means is that there's gonna be a delay in refunds issued. Districts lose revenue as additional revenue interest accrues on those refunds. And then reduced support for veterans, seniors, and disabled citizens for exemption and deferral programs. Those are two groups of folks that need a little extra time and attention when they are applying for these programs, so they're not mandated. So, what we do, so many things that are mandated that when we go to make reductions, we've made so many that we have to look and think, okay, what is not mandated? And unfortunately, that is one of the things that's not mandated, so. And then reductions in materials and services. So it's a sale of an appraisal vehicle, eliminate sending trimester reminder notices, that's about 30,000 notices, and then professional and consulting will eliminate resources for external valuation and expert testimony during tax court trials. So due to the structural deficit in the general fund, A&T is reducing service levels by 1.84, reducing by 1.84%, which is 136,000. And this is a slide that I had last year, but I've updated some of the numbers. So this is our comparator counties. This is based on a report that the Department of Revenue puts out each year. And what they do is they look at account complexity, account numbers, the size of the county, and they say based on these, these factors, you should have this many FTE. So they have us at 76.5 is the orange recommended FTE for us, and we will be at 46.8, which is 61% of their recommended FTE. So our comparator counties, you can see that, we're pretty far below our comparator counties. Last year we were at 64% of that recommended FTE. This is our asset overview. We certified a tax roll for 24-25 of 101 billion in real market value, 43.1 billion in taxable value. We certified 721 million in taxes, 53 million goes to the county general fund, which is about 30% of the general fund revenue budget. And then over 30 million goes to the public safety local option levy. These are non-discretionary county funds, and the parks local option. So the administration, that is, we do planning, goals, direction, coordination, and operational oversight for assessment and taxation for the department. Our FTE is 2.8. Our resources are estimated, the CAFA grants in here, so just over $1 million, and then our expenses are $738,000. And in a second, I'm going to catch up with my notes here. Okay. Of course, the timely certification of the tax roll is always sort of, our number one goal. And then sort of new for this year is, not new for this year, but where I'm going to talk about later is stabilize and index funding, and then legislation. I'll talk about that sort of towards the end, because I actually can. I have something to say about that, not just that we hope, we make some progress, because we have made significant progress. On a side note, the associations, the assessors and tax collectors are merging, and that'll be effective July 1. So we will be the Oregon State Assessors and Tax Collectors. The acronym, I'm still not, it's not tacos, it's not OCATs. Anyway, it's, yeah. Tacos got voted down. And then we will also be, right? Well, yes, 36 counties, and you get 36 opinions. So our strategic plan, we're also focused on redoing our strategic plan. It will be effective January 1st of 2026. So it's good timing because the county is also doing their strategic plan. Property tax management. This division is, this is where we do all of the tax collection, distribution, all the account administration, ownership records, cadastral maps. This is where we collect, distribute all the monies for all the taxing districts. Public information is housed here. This is where we process all of the exemptions, especially assessed applications that come through our office. And we have 23 FTE. Last year we had 24 FTE. I should say 24, 25. And then the resources is 650,000, and our expenses are 4.1 for this. And new, very soon, we will be accepting credit card payments at our customer service counters. Now, this may seem like we're behind the times, but really, this having the ability to accept credit cards, there's security risk in that, having credit card information, so we had to be deliberate and partner with TS to make sure that, we were doing everything we could to safeguard that information. So thank you for that. These two are really instrumental in that, particularly Danny. So that's coming probably in the next month, yeah. And then, let's see, our collection efforts, we're really focusing on our collection efforts. And what that means is really establishing relationships with taxpayers who call, who, they're concerned that they haven't made a payment. They maybe feel a little overwhelmed with the whole process. So establishing relationships with these taxpayers, having a payment plan saying, okay, if you paid this much each month, that will keep you out of foreclosure. Calling them to thank them once they do make a payment, and then reminding them that they have another one coming up. You'd be surprised at how these relationships really can help people feel more comfortable. I think when people are making tax payments, they want to hold their lender at bay, say, look, I have a payment plan set up, and it's nice for them, and we're seeing more collections because of it. So really investing in those relationships. And then we recently, there's machinery and equipment accounts that are improvement only that are hard to administer because businesses sometimes, it's hard to foreclose on improvement only accounts because it's not real property. So, getting payment for some of those back taxes has been challenging. And we're really trying to make an effort and put some resources towards collecting on those back taxes on those accounts. And then the district formation resource group, with the uptick in wildfires over the last, really 5 years, there has been the merging of two rural fire protection districts and then the creation of the Row River Fire Protection District. And that is a combo effort between our office, elections, county council, public works, and it's a big lift to create a new taxing district. So it's something that we have to create a new business process for and really understand the process and help those taxing districts along. Most of those districts don't have attorneys, right? They're citizens trying to protect their house and their neighbors' houses. So it's nice to see that, all the way to the finish line with those districts. And then I think I'll move on. So appraisal, the purpose of appraisal is to value property, real and personal, do a ratio report. We inspect properties. We have 21 FTE in this division. I'm just gonna go real quick to here, because this is a nice visual of what we do. So onboarding and training I want to focus on for a minute. In appraisal, we have 43% of our personnel for 25-26 is either new to the department or new in their position, meaning they got promoted. We had 3 longtime employees leave, which meant we had a lot of opportunity for promotion. And so we have people that stepped up into new roles, and now they have to train in their other people in their former roles. And so onboarding and training is going to be a focus for us. And then we are starting a pilot project with C3 AI. So what this is C3 AI is partnering with Google, and Google pays $250,000, we pay $1. So it's a risk that it took a long time for us to commit to it, but now we're committed to it. And essentially, we give C3 our data, and they have a contract with MLS, and they look at our data, and at the end of the day, we need help figuring out where to put our resources for reappraisal, to come up with a reappraisal plan. What areas are most, in need of boots on the ground. So because we have so many properties, as you all saw last year with the heat maps, we have so many properties that we need to visit, that we really have to figure out, okay, where do we put our resources, you know. We identified the problem, now it's time to stop admiring the problem and move to a solution, so that's what we're doing here with C3.
Sure. What percentage of assessed value versus market value do you like to try and keep?
Well, that is a formula, and that is different year to year. So the change property ratio dictates what that ratio is on every account. Yeah, so I think for this last year, what was the residential CPI? Going to turn to you if you remember, was it 50%, 51%? Okay, we think it was 0.507? Give or take. Yeah, so we take the added real market value and multiply it times the change property ratio, and that's how much MAV, maximum assessed value, we add to the existing MAV. And then, yeah, so, and that fluctuates, so in an up market and the change property ratio will be low, like the 50%. In a down market, the change property ratio will be higher, 60, 70%. Yeah, so it just depends year to year, and it creates, so that's one of the things Measure 50 did, but it created some pretty gross inequities from property to property, built in different years, the exact same footprint, class, materials, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so there's not one formula, it's property dependent. Great. C3, let me see. Of course, the real market value as of 1/1/25. So the tax statements that get sent out in the fall, what was on the dirt as of January 1st of 2025 is what is going to be reflected on the tax statement. So we look at the market, everything that happened in 2024 will dictate the real market value of those tax statements coming out this fall. So we're always, it's always a look back. Yeah. So future challenges and opportunities. I put all of this together because I think with opportunities come challenges. Any sort of change is, is an opportunity to look at our business processes, but that can be challenging when you don't have a lot of FTE to do that. So this last year, we facilitated in-house continuing education training for state appraisal registration, and we saved on outside education and travel. And we didn't have to, pay for those Department of Revenue classes or the IAAO classes. And we issued, I think it was 157 credits to different appraisers, which they need to stay registered with the state. So, and then in October of 24, the Board of County Commissioners approved a fee increase for service, and this included application fees, some processing of different fees for different programs. So that was an opportunity. And then collaboration with county statewide on process efficiencies. And then cultivating relationships with district members and partner agencies. This one does not go in the challenges category. This is really the opportunities. Things like any legislative efforts that might impact other districts. MUPD, we have great relationships with local cities, local jurisdictions. So when we have questions, we call and we say, can I get help with this? What, because each one is different, each application process, or each application is different. And then with districts, we do a lot of estimating of revenue so that they can create their budgets, which they turn into us in July 15th. And so software replacement project, we are currently in the middle of a multi-county, multi-year effort to replace our legacy software from the 90s. Now, we implemented this software in the 90s, but it was actually created in like early 90s. So probably I mean, what I'm hoping is that in the next 8 years, we can say that this project is done. Right now, we are trying to shore up our contract with the project manager to lead this project. And then I talked about the C3 AI project. Does anyone have questions about this page? No? Okay. Legislative changes. So any change any mandated change that has to do with property taxes requires us to change our software. And since our software was created in the early 90s, this takes a group effort. It takes people who really understand our software. So though there's opportunities, there's also challenges with legislative changes. So House Bill 3518 this is really where so much of our effort has gone this last year, and this is to increase the CAFA funding. And it would do that by, if passed in its current form, it would increase recording fees from $9 to $18. There would be a 0.3% holdback of imposed taxes, less bonds, from the districts. The districts would receive all Tier 1 and Tier 2 delinquent interest. And then there would be a $10 million state general fund biennium contribution. And this would increase CAFA from 11% to about 25%. Yes.
Is there any inclusion of like a cost of living change over time included in this proposal?
That's a great question. This will, if passed in this form, that 0.3% of imposed taxes grows with the taxes as the taxes grow. So there's an automatic growth with it, and 0.3%. It's not a large contribution from the districts because they're also getting all of the delinquent interest instead of part of the delinquent interest. So Danny created a spreadsheet to show exactly an estimate of what the districts would pay under this formula, and what it would cost for them. So we have been meeting with, let me get my notes on this one. Well, first of all, I'll just kind of give you where this bill is right now because it's still live. It's a revenue bill, so it'll be live until the end of session, which is late June, month and a half. At a local level, we've met with cities, school districts, mayors, fire chiefs, and garnered support from the Board of County Commissioners and individual commissioners. Sheriff Harold, DA Perosa, City of Eugene, City of Springfield, Row River Rural Fire Protection District, 4J Superintendent Gill, the 4J Legislative Committee, and this is going to be voted on by the 4J board next week. Springfield School District CFO has also support with a vote pending with his board. And I've initiated conversations with the City of Cresswell, Cottage Grove, Oak Ridge, Bethel School District, Lane ESD, City of Florence. There's a lot of districts. I have a big district. There's a lot of districts in it. So we're trying to cast our net wide. Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you. And I know this is a priority bill for the Association of Oregon Counties, and the
That's
League
correct.
of Cities is committed to neutral or actually support?
They're committed to neutral.
They're committed to neutral, that's what I
We're trying to get them to support.
Right.
I think that there's some fundamental education about CAFA and how it functions.
Yeah.
That those conversations have been really beneficial. In fact, just this afternoon, I met with the assessor tax collector lobbyist and Superintendent Gill. He has history with the Oregon Board of Education. He was a director. And, really explaining the fundamentals of this. They really get in the weeds, but, giving people an opportunity to understand it and how it can benefit the districts those are the conversations we're engaging in now.
Great. And then the 10 million from the state general fund, is that allocated by the same formula as the CAFA fund overall, or is that a competitive?
Interesting, good question. So all of this money would go into the CAFA fund itself. So then we would
I
just
see.
apply for the grant.
I see.
And, you know, yeah,
Got it, thank you.
yes. Let me look at my other notes on this. So far, there has been, there was a hearing, there's been numerous meetings with the Department of Revenue, lobbyists from education, cities, special districts, and realtors associations. We're anxiously anticipating that once the amendments are drafted this week, that Chair Nathanson will schedule a follow-up meeting next week or the week after for some fine tuning. Yeah, so there's, you know, with so many different interests at stake, it's really important to have these one-on-one conversation with districts and say, this is what it would cost you, but this is our anticipated ROI. Always being conservative with that number, but it seems to pencil out. Yeah, so.
We were smiling over here because Dr. Nelson hired Colt Gill a few years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was on the Bethel board when we hired him.
Oh, great, so,
Known Colt a while.
if you know people in K-12, call them, 3518.
I think you do.
And then, so turns out this is not the only legislative bill that we're tracking. There's bills that Hennepin v. Tyler v. Hennepin there's multiple bills that we're tracking. Senate Bill 48, which is Middle Income Revolving Loan Fund, which passed last year, and this bill kind of cleans it up, kind of fine tunes it a little bit. There's enterprise zone bill, there's exemption of generators is House Bill 3823. So I'm part of the legislative committee and we meet every week for assessors and tax collectors, and I'm also the liaison for AOC for assessors. So it's a lot of legislative meetings. So yeah, questions about this? That's it.
Alright, thank you.
Yes,
Just going back on that, you say starting to take credit card payments.
yes.
And being retired banker, who's paying the fees? So it'll be added on?
Yes.
Okay,
We currently take them online,
okay.
and same thing, the customer pays those.
Okay, and then one other one perhaps?
Yes.
You're talking about the reappraisal.
Yes.
I mean, you're trying to find certain areas, so you wouldn't just isolate and pick one house out of the area. You would do multiple houses in the same area to keep it
Yes.
from being, I mean, it would
Keep
make,
it uniform.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because one person might have done some and somebody might not have
Right.
done some, major.
Yeah. You know, so what Measure 50, before Measure 50, we were on a 6-year reappraisal cycle, so we'd go to every single property every 6 years. And once Measure 50 passed, we started, the statute mandated us to just go out on exception events and inspect properties on exception events. So that's new construction, renovations, really for inspection purposes. Those are the two big things so we go out on permits, high value permits. Yeah, so it kind of became a little bit of a, I don't wanna say hodgepodge, but I mean, you saw the maps last year. It's, there's some areas that, it's kind of like out in River Road, who was annexed into the city and who isn't. If you look at one of those maps, it's like, there's no sort of rhyme or reason to it. Yeah, unless you look at the permits, and then if you pulled a permit, then you're in, if you didn't, you're out, so, yeah.
Other questions from the committee? This was incredibly helpful. I really appreciated the legislative update. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Did I miss anything from my team? No? Okay, great. Let me know if you have follow-up questions and I'm happy to answer them for you. Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the next item on our agenda is a 10-minute break. So it's 3:15. Let's be back at 3:25.
Exactly.
Some of us got one a little earlier.
I have like pretzels. It's like you couldn't do it. Something about having a pretzel.
It's part of the merchant agreement.
So you couldn't do it. Kind of nostalgia.
I think it is now 3:25. I'm gonna call the meeting back to order. So I believe the next item on our agenda is a presentation by Public Works. So would love to welcome Director Hurley to the table, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Budget Committee. Happy to present Public Works budget. We've been working hard at this for many a month now, and thank you to the budget team in County Admin that helps us and our folks online. Paula Davis leads our admin division and has worked with her team with Kathy Howard and Erica Houston and Tara Hewell doing a lot of hard work for the last many months so that we can do the easy part of just presenting here to you. So thank you for your time here today. As we go through this, I have half of our Public Works team and they can introduce themselves as they come through to present. Lance Inglitz, our Assistant Director, won't be presenting, but you'll get to hear from the other 4 managers here. And we'll take you through the different divisions. We're only focusing on the divisions that are structurally imbalanced. And we'll talk about the reasons behind that and what we're doing to try to fix those situations. So here we are for our department overview. Our mission to maintain, protect, and enhance the livability and sustainability of Lane County's natural and built environments. And so we'll be hearing from land management, waste management, roads and bridge maintenance, and engineering construction services. We won't be hearing from the other 4 there, but I will touch on general services a little bit. That's the one area where we do receive general fund, and we've done some reducing there. Our FTE for the department, 392, and then we have a number of 1040 employees, so we have about 450-ish employees in Public Works. You can see our overall revenue and expense numbers. Good to see our resources are more than our expenses, but that's not the case in all the funds, and that's where the real story is, so we'll get into the details of that. This is our overall pie chart here. Looks a little different than it has in previous years. Typically, we're about 2/3 state revenues and fees and charges. This year, we have an anomaly due to the Clean Lane Resource Recovery Facility. We're anticipating selling a $35 million bond. So that goes into that property rentals piece, the purple portion. So that's significantly higher than in past years. Also, the orange block there for taxes and assessments, larger than it has been previously due to the parks levy. Good story there, and seeing a lot more revenue coming into our parks division. So in the fees and charges area, most of that comes in through the waste management division, WMD we call it. So about $22 million that comes in through the tipping fees that are assessed when haulers and residents bring their waste to our transfer stations and the landfill. That's lower than it has been in previous years. We do have an issue in the waste management division where the city of Springfield's waste is going out of county. We are going to be in conversations with the city to try to reverse that and get things kind of back into the system. And we'll be keeping the board updated as we move through those conversations. The big piece in fees and charges, fleet. That's for the charges, the user charges to other areas around the county where vehicles are assessed a charge for their operations and ultimate replacement. And then land management division in the building permits and land use permits that are processed through there. So then the other big piece is in the federal and state revenues. Mostly that's actually state revenues through the highway fund, the state highway fund that supports our engineering construction services and road maintenance. We haven't been getting as much as we had hoped from the last transportation package, but we have a transportation package that's in the legislature right now that's looking really exciting, and I'll let them talk about how that's looking. We do also receive construction reimbursement from projects that we partner with the state and with various cities throughout the county to help them construct their projects. And then getting to that area of general fund support, that's in our animal services division. So it's about $740,000, and I'll talk a little bit about the reduction in that area. But overall, the picture you probably heard from all the different areas around the county is that our revenues are not keeping up with expenditure growth. Mainly because of the high inflationary costs we've seen impacting our materials and services, and then resulting in cost of living allowances increases. So we've finished our negotiations with our ASME employees. That's a smaller section in Public Works than in other departments. But we are working through negotiations right now with our 626 union and our Admin Pro union, and so we expect some pretty significant personnel increases as we work through those negotiations to account for market adjustments and COLAs. Moving on to Lane County Animal Services. So we provide animal services for rural Lane County. We are not taking on the city's animal services. We do not have capacity.
That was my question.
This is a lot of work for the 2 animal welfare officers we have that are supported by 2.5 office assistants. We were looking at a 5% reduction because this is one of the areas supported by general funds and had proposed eliminating a 1040 position, but we've not had to do that, thank you, because it's a very small program and that would have been a very large impact for them. We are instead reducing our support that we provide for the spay and neuter program. We provided vouchers for groups to be able to have reduced costs for that. We're eliminating some of that and also eliminating some overtime and extra help that normally supports this program. So there will be some impacts, particularly if we have an emergency situation of a wildfire where we have to evacuate animals and such things that we wouldn't be able to plan for. But the total reduction is about $15,000 in that program. So overall, our expenses in this budget have increased by 17%. Looking at the breakdown on that, our personnel costs have gone up by $2.4 million due to those market adjustments and COLAs I just talked about. I'm happy to say that our materials and services are actually going down by $2.6 million. That's been a lot of just tightening the belt, looking at where we can reduce our budgets at various line items across the budget. And I think we've done a good job at that. Capital expenses are going to be up about $2.1 million. That's going to be driven by projects in our engineering construction services division, and Sasha will talk more about that. And we also have a closure project capping an area of the landfill that Jeff may talk about in his presentation. And I'll pass this off now to Keir Miller, our land management division manager.
Thanks, Dan. Good afternoon, commissioners. Again, my name is Keir Miller. And I work in the land management division, and LMD as it's known. Our division is responsible for administering building codes, land use codes, code enforcement, on-site sanitation. We have 5 major program areas. Our building safety program, which includes plan review and inspections, code enforcement, coordinated services, which is our outward customer-facing service team, land use planning, which comprises both current planning and long-range comprehensive planning, and then our on-site sanitarians that administer the state DEQ program. We currently have an FTE budgeted of 47 for the next fiscal year, 47 FTE. However, next year, as in years past, LMD is projecting to be structurally imbalanced. This, as Dan mentioned, is due to expenses just exceeding revenues. The majority of land management is within the ASME bargaining unit. That recently went through negotiations, and we saw some sizable wage increases as well as market adjustments for that team. So our expenses have risen even though we haven't added any additional staff in the last year. Right now, the budget before you all shows a $1.2 million budget deficit. However, the positive news here is that we've been going to the board regularly for the last several months with a proposed fee increase that will be phased in over the next 3 years. Our plan is to 3 years out from now have a structurally balanced budget based on this phased in fee increase, which was just finally approved this afternoon. So thank you very much, commissioners, for getting us there. We will be drawing down reserves for the next couple of years until we balance that budget, but we do have healthy reserves at the moment. So ultimately, we're looking at about a $400,000 increase in fees this year, and raising that to $800,000 additional revenue next year, and then making up to $1.2 million by the fiscal year 27-28. This coming year, our key initiatives are going to be focused around improving efficiency as well as updating our codes to meet state requirements. There's a number of projects in the pipeline. We have a code modernization project, a clear and objective standards project. All these are geared around making the code more user-friendly, making the development process more straightforward, clear, and objective. We will be migrating away from our legacy permit software system to something different. We have an RFQ in the works now to try to upgrade our current system, our Excella permit processing system. And of course, we'll continue to work on our key performance indicators that we've been developing over the last several years. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll turn it over. I think it's Jeff.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeff Rolandini, the manager of our waste management division. And we too have multiple programs within our division. Calling a few of these out, first our tip fees pay for all of our services, as mentioned before. We have programs such as nuisance abatement. That's our illegal dump cleanup program. We have 2 staff that go around and clean those up, and they also do a lot of the camp interaction and cleanup for unhoused camps. We have our recycling and waste reduction area, which does our education programming and our policy work. So they're doing a lot of work right now around the Recycling Modernization Act and implementation. They were leads on the battery recycling legislation that's out there, and so really digging higher level into how we can solve some of our issues with materials management through better policy. Our environmental services program, they do cover stormwater permitting and monitoring, our landfill permits, our emissions monitoring for the landfill, and working with our gas system out at the landfill and coordinating with EPUD on that and LRAPA. We continue to actively monitor 5 closed landfills around the county. So a lot of our current transfer stations were old landfills that then closed and we made them transfer stations. And we have 5 locations that we still actively monitor and have to pay to kind of put new cover on it and make sure that we're dealing with any issues amongst all of our other kind of just our operations of the vast transfer station network that we have across the county. And so, I have about the equivalent of 95 full-time employees in waste management. I'm really proud of the work that they do. So some of the changes to our budget, one of the largest things Dan highlighted was, having waste exported in the Springfield community is really hurting our division in 2 ways. It's not only less waste going to Short Mountain, but it's not paying for a lot of these services I just mentioned that are paid through our tipping fees. And so we're a little unique in that the county owns and operates a landfill. It's not operated by a private party. So in a lot of jurisdictions, they don't own that landfill, so they have to pay for all those services that I was talking about in other ways. Here we do it through our tip fee. So when someone isn't using that resource, we are still providing those services to the entire community and kind of not made whole on those. So that's why we're looking to talk to those communities that are doing that and helping to kind of figure out how we can continue to provide these resources and kind of stay whole. I think as everyone knows, so part of our large fee increases for Clean Lane, we had kind of said 3% is this marker for ongoing operations, what we call CPI, and then this 8% addition would be for Clean Lane. And we saw our costs go up, especially from vendors that we use, by a lot more than 3%. And so we kind of have 2 things happening there, where costs were going up higher, so we couldn't have as much for Clean Lane. And then the waste being exported meant our revenues were going down. And so those are kind of 2 of the things that are hurting us. We are looking also at, we're doing a regional waste plan with some of our other county partners and kind of thinking about how we're going to manage waste in this region between Portland and Lane County for the future as all of our neighbors kind of see their landfill space dwindling and them looking for a place to go. And so, looking at potentially things like waste importation to make up for some of that. And especially when we have Clean Lane and we know that bringing waste in wouldn't be, a 1-to-1 going to the landfill. And so we are, while our budget, is not as healthy as it has been in the past, next year we are showing that we'll contribute $800,000 to our reserves. It's just that those reserves won't be at the target levels that we want them to be, and similar to land management, we hope to continue seeing that number rise to where we'll be able to get back on track with the amount that the county would like to see in the reserves. So we don't plan on using reserves next year, and we do plan on contributing $800,000 to those reserves and slowly building them back up to where they need to be. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, committee members, commissioners. For those who don't know me, my name's Oren Schumacher. I'm the road maintenance manager with Lane County Public Works. And I usually like to start our presentations with kind of a description of our system, which is what's up on this slide. Not only the operations we do, but the scope of the operations. Our key function is pavement preservation and road safety. So our goal is to maintain all county roads in a good condition across our system. For those who don't know, our system is over 1,400 miles of roadways all the way from the coast to the Cascade Mountains. Big system to maintain. Included in that is the striping and signage on the roads. I'll skip over that. And then bridge maintenance. We have over 420 bridges in Lane County. That's a significant infrastructure that we maintain. And a lot of our bridges were built back in the 50s. So putting a relative age on those and current value of the systems is going to be something we're monitoring over the years. A lot of those, when people think of like the seismic events coming, I always let people know we have 2 seismically retrofitted bridges in the county at this point. So that's some of the projects and scope of funding we'll be looking at as we move forward to see what we need to focus on there. And then vegetation management, which may seem small to some who don't know the program, but that's Lane County maintains most of our road system through a heavy mechanical manual program. So that comes with the cost of equipment, operations, and expense to do that. So that is actually one of the significant program costs that we incur every year as we maintain our roads. Well, I should go back to that real quick. Sorry about that. I always like to know we are the largest division in Public Works. It's just a little token I throw out there for every one of our presentations. I'm not sure, there was apparently a typo here on the resources. That is not accurate. But one thing I did want to highlight to the budget committee is that the road maintenance, we're a service provision. We're not really a revenue generator. We do generate revenues through sometimes like a FEMA event. We may see an influx of emergency dollars when those events happen to recoup our costs. We also do striping and other agreements with our cities across the county. So we do create revenue, but I wouldn't call us a revenue generator. We're more of a service provider. So most of our funds come straight from the state highway fund and gas tax. So some of the stuff moving forward in FY 25-26 that I wanted to highlight. The division-wide fleet program review. So this is a partnership with our fleet division, who's not here today, but they are one of the larger programs that we have in running a budget for our program. So obviously in road maintenance, you have a lot of large equipment and small equipment to run our programs. So we've worked with them on a lot of efficiencies around tracking and auditing our repairs, replacing equipment at prime times versus past their cycles. So a lot of advances have gone on between our 2 groups to make that a much improved and effective program. Dan noted this, we have 2 union contracts that are currently in negotiations right now that affect the roads division heavily. LCA 626 is our operators union, that's the majority of our employees, and then our admin teams through the Admin Pro contract. So we're monitoring that this year as those have not been negotiated yet, so they're in process and we'll have to see what those impacts bring to our work group and the fund.
A really quick question. Sure. Are we doing interest-based bargaining with both those units?
We are.
Great, thank
Correct.
you.
Yeah. And then asset management. This is a topic we talked about years ago and it's back on the table around discussions. It's kind of bright right now and it shows a future of a lot of things that I think are going to be encouraging for us moving forward. It will incur a cost in an implementation program that will take numerous years to do, but it's exciting because it's going to give us an objective structure that we can manage our programs through and really provide life cycles, depreciations, a lot of awareness around efficiencies that we need to bring and rein in. So I'm excited about that, but it will bring a budget cost to our programs if we decide to proceed with that. And then we are currently working with the City of Eugene, that's the COE part of that, on a lot of people don't realize that Lane County maintains a lot of urban road system as well, mainly in the River Road, Santa Clara area. So we share services to be more efficient for the residents of those communities and have a dividing line where we manage north and they manage south. We do city streets, they do county roads in those areas. So we're renewing that. It's been on a 2-year extension because of just COVID issues and other impacts, getting those teams together to negotiate. But we're excited that hopefully by July 1st, we'll have something signed with the city to get back to doing that agreement. So exciting things. We talked about asset management. I'll cover a little bit on pavement condition index. That's an objective rating system that we utilize to put a number on roads, which tells you good, fair, or poor condition of our system. Lane County has been able, based on a lot of funding historically, to maintain our system in a really good condition. We're generally been maintaining an 80 to an 82 PCI, which ranks amongst the best, if not the best, in the state of Oregon. But I always want to highlight to everybody that that was really based on a robust funding mechanism back in the day where we had 20 million annually to fund these road systems. We don't have that anymore, so we're expecting and anticipating to see a decline in that without additional influx of dollars. I'll let Sasha talk about the TRIP monies that the state's currently working on right now, which would be a potential lifesaver for us in a few areas, so she'll touch on that. We talked about the division-wide fleet. Another one that I'd like to highlight is our stormwater program. We've been working with our engineering construction services team to implement, monitor, and develop our stormwater programs in the county. One of the biggest roadblocks to that system is that we don't have stormwater fees. So we don't have a dedicated operations team or dedicated fund to support that work. So we're just drawing off of road fund and pulling away from other resources and opportunities we could be pursuing without that funding. That stormwater program is going to be a big issue, especially in the River Road, Santa Clara area where all of our hard infrastructure exists. And then last but not least, recruitment, development, and retention. This has been an area of focus since COVID. During the COVID time period, we had a large change in the workforce, and we are generally greener than we've ever been. So our real focus over this last year and moving into next year is to put a lot of energy into the contract negotiations will be part of that, and other things in terms of training, development, and staff, encouraging that we keep staff here for as long as we can, because that's the key component in my mind of our program is the experienced people who know the county residents, know the road systems. There's a huge efficiency that's brought in that. So we're going to be dedicating a significant amount of energy over the coming years to that key area for our staff and development. So I will end my presentation there and hand it off to Sasha and be available for questions.
I have a quick question, if you want to do it now or later. Under the anticipated service and budget changes for next year, you had put a point here, a paving program will be reduced to nearly half of capacity due to rising costs of programs and materials. Is that because of the stormwater issue, or is that just rising costs, or all of it?
That generally from my side, which is the blade patch program, so not the overlay component, which is on the engineering side. Our biggest issue we're finding in that sector of work right now is the cost of materials.
Okay.
So we've seen dramatic increases. One of the examples I've given when we've had our bids for liquid oil, one of the key programs there, just as a note to see the cost, is that some of our key oil that we used even 3 years ago was about $375 a ton. This year's bids came in at just over $600 a ton. So in terms of mile per mile use of that material, the cost is just rising higher than we can afford to keep up with the road system. So,
okay.
Yeah, mainly prices has been the problem.
Thank you.
Hello, committee members, commissioners, good to see you. My name is Sasha Vartanian and I'm the manager of the Engineering and Construction Services Division. So I'll just refer to it as ECS from here on out because it's a mouthful. ECS is responsible for planning, design, survey, right-of-way, and construction management of capital investments for Lane County-owned roads and bridges, as well as we assist other divisions in this work and other agencies. We also provide other vital transportation services and programs, including managing right-of-way and associated permits involving utility infrastructure and development, responding to traffic safety inquiries, providing surveyor services such as road information and plat reviews, managing environmental permits associated with our stormwater program, and administering Lane Code Chapter 15 through short-range and long-range transportation planning. So that's a handful, and it all contributes to the improvement and protection of Lane County roads and bridges, which is essential. So, yep, next slide, thank you. So I want to speak to these points. We continue to depend on external funding to leverage the amount of capital projects we can take on. I do want to highlight there's a lot of federal uncertainty right now with some of our funding. We have one particular grant that was awarded This is through the Aquatic Organism Program for replacement of a Shaw Creek culvert, and that currently has not been obligated. We're hoping it's just paused, but that's just an example of some of the funding uncertainty we're seeing. We also are partners with Lane Council of Government on a PROTECT grant, which stands for Promote Resilient Operations for Transforming Efficient and Cost Savings Transportation Program. And that was a $5 million grant that was awarded, and I believe that's paused indefinitely. We'll find out more. So there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of how we can get external funding, which we've depended on in the past. And to the second bullet, this is the first year we're actually proposing to use, what we've done in the past is use the portion of the road fund that supports our CIP. We're proposing to use project reserves to fund that portion. So that's $2.5 million that would be coming out of project reserves instead of just the road fund. And this is to offset the increase in our operational costs as a program. And then costs, as Oren spoke to, construction costs continue to rise. We're seeing that our cost estimates continue to go up even if we plan for inflation. We're trying to offset this risk by bidding projects early, and that has shown positive results in getting good bid prices. And also, one major change this year is we have a new utility facility permit fee. We're now able to collect a $500 fee for some utility work in our right-of-way, thanks to a bill that was passed with the state legislation and an ordinance that the board approved. So on to key initiatives. We are working on 11 capital projects through planning, design, and construction equaling $30 million. We've successfully today just transferred another section of roads to the city of Eugene, and we hope to continue to work with them in partnership to identify roads that they are willing to take on. We're also working to identify process improvements for our right-of-way facility permits. ECS plans to take on all right-of-way permitting duties in the coming year, and we're evaluating the program to make sure it's efficient and clear to customers, but also to make sure we're capturing the costs we need to capture. Warren spoke to stormwater, so I won't cover that more here. Again, we spoke to needing to identify continued grants. One grant I'm really excited about that were awarded last year is a state grant, our Safe Routes to School grant. We just had a pre-design meeting for Marcola Safe Routes to School project, and that's one of the most rewarding projects our group works on. It's serving rural schools in Lane County and improving sidewalks and ADA and crossing improvements for that school. And then this coming fiscal year, you will also see our new Transportation Safety Action Plan, and that will go to the board for approval. We got federal funding to update our plan, and that will help us hopefully be competitive for federal construction funding for projects prioritized in that project. We also house the Special Districts Program. This is going to be the last full year of funding for that program, and it's also essential for supporting our unincorporated communities that need support with infrastructure projects. And then we hope to continue to expand our support internally for public works divisions in providing capital projects. And then I do want to we spoke to some of our rising operating costs. So if you have questions, I'm happy to go into more detail, but there's currently a package on the table for state funding that is enhancing the highway fund that supports the county. The biggest thing is that the proposal continues to have a 30% distribution to counties, which is the most important piece to us, that not a bunch comes off the top to support the state, but the distribution of 50% to the state, 30% to counties, and 20% to cities remains. The current revenue projection, if the bill stays as is, which is doubtful, is once it's fully implemented, is roughly $22 million for Lane County. That's what I have annually.
All right. And now for some overarching challenges and opportunities across the department. Recruitment and retention is actually going better than it has been previously. I think doing some of those cost of living increases, wage increases, we're finding better retention. But we are still struggling in a few areas, particularly with our mechanics. Those are really hard positions to fill. We have a hard time competing with our local competitive agencies here. Engineering positions, we've had one vacancy for many a month that we're trying to fill there. And also in our land management division, we're looking okay right now, but as we have vacancies, it's hard to find qualified people for some of these very specific classifications. We talked quite a bit about personnel and materials and services costs. Oren mentioned some of the large ones we've seen for rock and oil for our roads in particular. Sasha talked about the transportation package already, so keeping our fingers crossed on that. We will be moving forward with the fee adjustments that have been approved by the board. Keir talked about the ones today, and Jeff talked about the ones that were approved during the time that the Clean Lane project was approved. So we have another year of increases on that. And then we'll be looking at other CPI adjustments across the department to make sure that we stay structurally balanced in the areas that are currently doing well. eBuilder, so this is an area in the engineering construction services division. A few years ago, they implemented a cloud-based software package that helps us with our project management, our construction management. That's led to a lot of efficiencies and better coordination. We will be looking, we just had a meeting right before this talking about trying to roll that out across the department so that we have better oversight of our projects and make sure we're efficiently managing those. And then always seeking grants and other intergovernmental agreement opportunities. Very much a lot of uncertainty with grants, but we are moving forward with one exciting grant in our Lane Event Center. We had a $1.5 million HUD grant to replace the roof on the ice rink and do some seismic analysis on that building. So we'll be continuing to seek those. And then intergovernmental agreements, opportunities with our local partners. We have a lot of those throughout the department that enable us to do our work, and we'll be seeking out additional ones. Hopefully, with the City of Springfield, we'll be maybe exploring what, through our waste management division and services we provide there. So that concludes our presentation. I'm blessed with the team I get to lead here, and I hope you enjoyed hearing from Keir and Jeff and Oren and Sasha, and they're here to speak to any questions you might have, and I'll be able to speak to anyone who's not present here for the other divisions that we missed. I do want to thank the Budget Committee for your service to Lane County. We couldn't get through this process without you, and thank you for your service to our community.
Great. Thank you all for the presentations. I'll open it to the committee for questions. I have Commissioner Senega and then Commissioner Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. Do you know how long Springfield, since we've been in conversation with them, has been hauling their trash elsewhere?
Sandy Pack for them. We think it started, so it's a little confusing in that we initially partnered with that organization to haul a certain amount of waste to the Juneau facility as a waste diversion opportunity, and it looks like when the Juneau facility started having trouble and rejecting their waste, they then started, around the same time they bought the new landfill south of us, so Waste Connections.
That was early 2022.
Yeah.
It's April of 2022.
Yeah. And then their sister company EcoSort started last fall. In November, they essentially ended any sort of transportation of waste to the landfill here.
So, and then we're looking to extend the landfills at Point of Clean Lane.
Yes, Commissioner.
And now we're looking at bringing trash in from possibly other places.
Well, we also need to support the services that we provide throughout the community that are paid for through. So our tipping fee is comprised of three components. There's the disposal fee, the system benefit fee, and what we call the other fee, which supports the long-range planning in the land management division. But the two major components are the disposal fee and the system benefit fee, and that's about 50-50 on that. The system benefit fee helps provide funding for lower costs at our transfer stations, for our recycling education, or our free household hazardous waste program, for cleanup days for the communities. We provide a fee waiver lots of different services. And so without the tonnage, and particularly that $7 fee that's not being paid for now with the waste going out from Springfield, we're having difficulty supporting those programs.
Thanks.
Commissioner Trigger?
Thank you. I should know this, but maybe I want to hear a little bit more about the stormwater program and the fee. So it's been a while since we've really talked about like does that have to go to voters if we were to have a stormwater fee? Do we have an estimate of what range of revenue? And I imagine the greatest challenge is what is the collection mechanism, since we're not the utility that's sending a bill for water usage or something that we can tax such a fee onto.
So that's a large issue there, and it's an issue that's been of concern for a long time. And we have looked at implementing a utility fee. So in the city of most of the incorporated cities, there's a stormwater fee to pay for all the different services, which continue to expand over the years through our permits through the state. There's more and more we need to do about retrofitting and monitoring and all the things. So we've gone through actually a couple phases of looking at a stormwater utility fee. As you mentioned, Commissioner, the one challenge would be the collecting of the fee. So in the city of Eugene, they put it on the eWeb bill, and it's easy to do there. But eWeb has made it very clear they wouldn't collect that fee for us on our behalf. But there is this disparity, particularly in the River Road Santa Clara area, where parcel by parcel, people are in or out of the county, and they're receiving the same stormwater services, but in the county we're not receiving a fee for that. So we do need to look at options for that. Otherwise, it's just cutting into the amount of road work we can do. So it would be great to bring that back to the board if there's interest there. To your question, the board could implement that without a vote, but then it can be referred to the voters with, I think it's about 100 petitioners. So it would likely go to the voters anyway. That's the most common way of funding a stormwater program, and it's something I do think we should look at more.
Thank you. And has there ever been, I don't recall, but in past years, discussion of a legislative approach in that you say there we have a general practice and principle of fighting unfunded mandates, but if there are state requirements for stormwater programs but no money to come along with us administering them, have there been conversations, has there been legislation in the past that wasn't successful that would create a fund that would help us?
I don't know that there have been conversations about setting up a fund. I think there isn't a whole lot of sympathy for local governments because these are actually coming from federal programs, so it's every community across the country dealing with these challenges. There has been pushback as more permit requirements have been added with these unfunded mandates. The City of Springfield and other partners in the Association of Clean Water Agencies kind of pushed back, and I think there might have been a lawsuit, but we're pretty much stuck with the requirements, and I don't see any real funding mechanisms other than setting up local funding.
Thank you.
Mr. Trigger, I'd add one thing to that too, is just the awareness that most of this infrastructure is in the UGBs.
Yeah.
And so similar to these road transfers, that system goes with it. So a lot of that stuff that we're not funded for was really the focus was to be that this system would eventually start falling to the cities. And so, of which they collect stormwater fees. So it aligns much better with those programs.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
More questions?
If I could circle around on waste management, so if we have Springfield shipping their waste to another facility, are they doing that because it's cost beneficial for them to not use the Lane County facility?
So I don't know what the actual numbers look like. They're transporting it clear down to the Medford area, so there's got to be a huge transportation cost on that. But then they're not paying the disposal fee at the landfill. So how that balances out, I'm not exactly sure, but I will say that looking at the rates from between Eugene and Springfield, so they're a little bit different in that the city of Springfield doesn't have yard debris built into that. That's an extra fee for people that want to pay for that. But if you add that in for people that have yard debris pickup in Springfield and compare that to the city of Eugene, people in Eugene are actually paying a lower rate. So it's not saving the city of Springfield any money by having waste go out of county. It's just really hurting our community.
But you're saying we really don't know the mechanics around the equations of what it costs to dispose of it and the transport from those locations?
I don't. They haven't shared any of that data with us. I'm just saying comparing the two communities where one is exporting and one's not.
Right.
In the city of Eugene, where there's not exporting, they're actually paying a lower rate.
But if we're looking at the possibility for importing waste, it seems like knowing how those things all bolt together to anticipate other jurisdiction or other areas' decision-making process would seem like something we would want to know and understand from a business perspective. They have the ability to take the waste wherever they want. They're going to be doing that math.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we could anticipate being able to import trash if we have somebody who's literally right next door here who's shipping it to Bedford. So.
My personal thing, I think they're doing this to try to squeeze us to try to kill the Clean Lane project. So I'm not sure if it's being done on a financial decision of just the disposal cost and transportation cost. But we're going to have conversations with the city and likely with Sanapac in the near future to talk about this issue. There's a piece in the City of Springfield's code where it talks about the system benefit fee and that being part of the rates that are being charged to customers. So it's an issue we need to dig in with the City of Springfield, and I hope it will be cooperative.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lovell?
Thank you, Herb, for the question, and Commissioner Sanders too. I want to preface this by saying I'm not here to critique anyone, but I want us to be very careful about how we talk about this. Obviously, I represent Springfield. I know what the rates are. I know what Springfield's decision is. The waste management companies are competitive markets. Springfield, Crestwell, and Cottage Grove takes their trash to the Jackson County landfill. Now, Jackson County landfill was bought by Waste Management in April of 2022, a full 4 months before we started making decisions about Clean Lane. So my thinking is maybe there should have been some of this consideration taken into the fact of when we decided to talk about the Clean Lane project and factoring this possibility in, but it didn't seem to me like that's it. So I want us to be very careful about how we perhaps vilify Sanapac or Springfield City about what their reason is of why they're hauling their trash with. Again, I go back to my first point. This is a competitive market. They wouldn't do that unless it made financial sense for them, because Springfield's in a budget crunch like everybody else. So I just want to caution our conversation about this, if I may, please. So let's not say what we think until we get the facts.
Good point.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Other questions or discussion? Thank you again to the team, Director Hurley, for your presentation, and to the whole team for your presentation today. I believe the next item on our agenda is committee business. I don't think we have any.
I have a question for staff too. Yeah, I didn't. Did you have something, Christine?
I don't.
Oh, no. Go ahead. So I'm just curious regarding the minutes. I don't know if there's a different requirement. They're really thorough, but they restate a lot that's in the materials. So I'm sure it takes staff some effort to capture them. It also takes committee quite a bit of time to review them. So for me to feel good about approving minutes, I want to read them. So I'm just wondering if we might consider streamlining the minutes down to really capture the essential, this was the topic, it was discussed, if there's any action or direction that should be captured in more detail, but to sort of restate presentations, particularly things that have materials, that's all in the public record, could save some staff time on composing the minutes and save the committee time in reviewing them so that when we adopt them, we really are sure we've read them.
So in the past, the budget committee, and actually I've not had a chance to talk with our new legal counsel on this, but, and the minutes are a little different. So a few things on that maybe. Budget committee, we have produced different minutes than say we do for the Board of Commissioners in the past. In particular, when we're making reductions, to make sure that it's really documented a little more than just saying it was discussed, about what the discussion was. Now, of course, now we have video that somebody could go back to look for. So it really is a committee decision. I think the last time that we revisited it, the committee still wanted something that was a little pared back from if I showed you 15 years ago. maybe not quite as brief as the board. So I think, I don't know if legal counsel has any thoughts on that, right on the spot, about the type of minutes, or if we feel like video's enough, if somebody really wanted to see that the committee deliberated, especially while making reductions, that could put the community at risk, was the thought process in the past.
I love video, for filling out all the
Yeah.
details that we didn't used to have. Minutes are technically required to be kept because they have to reflect votes and stuff, but believe it or not, technically minutes, public meetings law doesn't require minutes to be approved. This is a whole other long story, but no, I don't have any particular suggestions for here, other than the video will be posted as they are, and people can see the deliberations that occur.
Yeah, so we are, I think I mentioned that we hired LCOG, so we were reviewing them just because we noticed some errors with somebody new doing it who wasn't familiar with the committee, so we have been spending some time doing that, but if the committee wants them to be more brief, leave out those type of things, yes, we can definitely give direction back to LCOG, we just need to give them an example. We just showed them last year's when we hired them.
That's a great point. I think Commissioner Farr, you're trying to.
Just say the minutes really aren't for us to review, they're for future generations to review. And never know how much depth they will be looking at, more and more all the time. But I think, but if we can continue to refer to the video for the full minutes, which we do with the Board of Commissioners meetings, and if you've read Diana Aldridge's minutes from Human Services Commission, I mean, it's word for word verbatim, which takes a lot of reading to get through it, but it really isn't for us. It's for if somebody wants to really dig into why did they make that decision. Well, it says here they discussed it. I don't know what they said, so.
Thank you for that. I think it's as much the presentations more than the committee discussion, which is more ephemeral. The discussion's more ephemeral, but the presentations are both
They're everywhere.
prepared ahead
Yeah.
of time and videoed, so.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Just floating it out there.
Any other thoughts from committee members? It sounds like a good solution might be pare back the presentation.
Portions.
Portions. Okay. Okay, great.
We'll give them that feedback, thank you.
Any other committee business before we adjourn?
Just for Thursday is 1:30, correct?
Correct, yes, back to 1:30, yes.
Okay.
Cool.
Great. I believe with that, our work session is officially adjourned at 4:13.
Cool.